Hello and welcome to the Women in Motorsport program. I'm Isha Azim from Racing with Isha, and with me we have Ben Schneider from Grid Encore and NASCAR.info, Emily Sharp and Joe Samaniego. As always, a big thank you to our Patreon investors Colin, Deshelle, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew. Your investment in the Grid Network, no matter the size, plays a crucial role in our mission to promote women in motorsport. You can make a difference by clicking on the link in the video description. Or you can always opt to do a one-time investment through Buy Me a Coffee or YouTube Super Chats. $10 by Super Chat or Buy Me a Coffee and we will mail you some Grid Network stickers. So don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share with family and friends who love motorsport. Now, let's get this show on the road. We'll start off by talking about Katherine Legge in the Indy 500. Now, the 108th Indianapolis 500 unfortunately ended too early for Katherine Legge. A blown engine on lap 22 ended her day. In total, 3 Honda engines blew on Sunday, and it was not a good day for Honda. Now, Emily, Ben, how disappointing was it that something was out of her control and that the team control took her out?
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating for her. And even more so, it was the second year in a row where her fate wasn't in her own hands. We all said it here on the show. We all, along with Katherine and everyone behind the 51 team, went into this year wanting nothing more for her than to complete all 200 laps. And unfortunately, this year went up in smoke, literally, for her. Last year, of course, she had that really unfortunate pit lane incident, and this year a blown engine. So truly, besides getting that chance to be back at the Indianapolis track and getting the opportunity to race with Dale Coyne Racing, that's really where her positives end. She, of course, had that really amazing partnership with e.l.f. Cosmetics, and got the opportunity to drive a really incredibly iconic hot pink car. But beyond her sponsorship and, participation, no one, including Katherine, wanted her day to end on lap 23. So I'm sure as soon as Marcus Armstrong's Honda engine went up in smoke, everyone across the grid was like probably holding their breaths, knowing that this was potentially a big problem, and it unfortunately was for Katherine. So really, really disappointing end for her day, and just really hope she gets another opportunity to redeem herself next year.
Yeah, really unfortunate. I think anybody that had a Honda engine, as soon as you saw Armstrong being the first one, I'm relieved that it was not more than it was, because those three happened in very quick succession early in the race. I thought for sure that at least a couple more were going to go throughout the rest of the 200 laps, but fortunately they didn't. It just seemed to be a problem earlier in the race for the Honda engines, but unfortunately, of course, Katherine Legge was one of them. And yeah, that is incredibly disappointing, because like Emily said, I don't know that, I mean, like we said on the show last week, the magic of Indy is, the track seems to pick the winner every year. You just never know what's going to happen. I don't think anybody had these wild dreams or expectations that Katherine Legge was going to win the race this year, trying to get the car in, on the last row shootout. She had a huge mountain to climb just to get in the race, and thank goodness she did. But we certainly wanted her to at least finish and run up to all 200 laps, finish on the lead lap, and maybe come away with a solid top 20 result for her. And it's unfortunate, but again, to Emily's point, this was something that was entirely out of her control, and something that bit a couple of her manufacturer engine teammates, I guess you could say, as well, with some of the other Honda power units not lasting more than just a handful of laps at the start of the race. So we'll see. I know Katherine Legge was very disappointed herself, and showed that emotion in her post-race interview. And I think has said, she still feels like this track owes her a little bit and wants to come back next year and just so much as finish the race, because, to Emily's point again, she hasn't gotten that chance the last 2 years, but she's come back, and it's incredibly disappointing to see that.
Yes, definitely. It was quite a disappointing day for Katherine Legge. And as Emily pointed out earlier, we saw that e.l.f. Cosmetics had a big presence at Indianapolis Motor Speedway this year with Katherine Legge. Again, she was the only female in the field, and we talked about how maybe next time we would have more females on the grid, Jamie Chadwick as a potential candidate for 2025. Now, e.l.f. had a huge presence at the Speedway and seemed to have gotten in. So, Emily, starting with you, potentially, could we see e.l.f. or another sponsor more focused on female consumers step up and support Katherine Legge or even another driver in next year's Indy 500?
I certainly hope so, Isha, and just kind of focusing more on e.l.f. Cosmetics. When they originally released their announcement announcing their partnership with Katherine Legge, they made it very clear that this decision was based towards providing women more opportunities to break through barriers beyond having, more women in racing seats. So with that thought process, I do truly believe that e.l.f. has a long-term plan in place beyond a partnership with Katherine Legge exclusively for this year. I know we have seen specific athlete driven brand partnerships like the Simone Biles Visa partnership. But I truly believe with how this company is positioning themselves with their recent announcement with partnership with pioneer Billie Jean King, I do think that they are trying to inhabit a space where they are helping provide an image for women overcoming adversity. So that all goes to say that I do truly believe that we will see e.l.f. Cosmetics back, continuing to sponsor women in this series. As I previously mentioned, I do hope that we get the opportunity to see Katherine Legge back again, just because I think she, while is not necessarily owed anything by Indy, I would like to see her have the opportunity to redeem herself. Of course, we are all buzzing about the opportunities that Jamie Chadwick may have in this series. But I do think that these brands like e.l.f. Cosmetics, like Charlotte Tilbury, are pushing more and more female-oriented brands to reconsider where they are aligning their sponsorships and making it a point to make it a priority to be part of more racing series opportunities where women are not at the forefront of the competition field.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. I did not word that very well because, of course, Indianapolis does not owe anybody. And I had an exchange with J.R. Hildebrand several years ago on what was then Twitter is now X, reminiscing on the 2011 finish. And even he brought that point up because I feel like if there is anybody that Indy owes, it's somebody like J.R. Hildebrand with how classic that finish was and how much destiny played a role in that. And even he was saying, the track doesn't owe you anything. So, but of course, we want to see Katherine. I feel like she, at the very least, deserves an opportunity to run the race to its completion, and hopefully she gets that chance, as early as next year with e.l.f. again. Hopefully, we see Pareto Autosport come back. Hopefully, Simona De Silvestro, still has another start or two to make at the Speedway. I know Tatiana Calderon was only doing the road courses, but her deal, didn't end up lasting the full year because she ran into sponsorship trouble. So unfortunately, it's been a common theme for a lot of drivers, not just female drivers, but any driver in this sport. If you can have all the talent in the world, if you don't have the sponsorship backing you, you're not going to get the same opportunities that those that do have those sponsorship dollars will get themselves. So, that's obviously a huge part of it. And that's why it's so great to see e.l.f. so committed. And Emily, I'm with you. I hope to see them back. And I feel like, with how much marketing activation we saw this weekend, I would be very surprised if, it's just a one and done deal for this year and we don't see them back at the 500 in 2025.
Yep, those were some great thoughts from you both. Now, while Catherine's day and month of May did not go so well, Caitlyn Brown's May was one to remember. Last year, she became the first female crew member to win in the Indy 500. This year, she did it again as she is the front left tire change for Joseph Newgarden. Not only did they win the race, but they also had a perfect sweep for the pit crew competition. She has been with Penske for 5 years, starting with NASCAR as a rear engineer and tire changer. She is the first female front tire changer for Team Penske. So, Emily, Ben, how big is this in breaking barriers and highlighting another avenue for females to get into motorsport?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing this up, Isha. We were all, obviously very disappointed for Catherine's outcome of her running at the 500, but immediately we were all here celebrating Caitlyn Brown's a huge accomplishment at becoming the second time ever for a woman to go back to back to be an Indy 500 crew member, part of a champion winning day. And so everyone here at Grid Network just wishes a huge congratulations to Caitlyn. But back to your question, Isha, I think it's a huge moment, not only for women, but I think we are moving towards a place where we are finding consistent opportunities to highlight female drivers. Of course, we need more representation, but I do find that more and more conversations are being had around the drivers behind the race vehicles. But the people going over the wall are equally important in contributing to the success of a team's day. And so having Caitlyn be in this position to where we can talk about her here on our show, and, media across the world are talking about her, it's shedding more light on, the women that are behind the scenes, not in a more as visible of a position as drivers, who are making a difference. And it's just ultimately going to inspire girls and women everywhere to want to look at career opportunities as a member of a pit crew or in engineering. So again, huge congratulations to Caitlyn and everyone at Team Penske. But what an amazing accomplishment to not only do it once last year, but then to do it 2 years in a row.
Yeah, don't have too much more to add to what Emily said, but it's absolutely massive for women in motorsports, and particularly to do it at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I think, just puts into perspective how far we have come. Of course, we, still dream of a day where, we have a female driver in victory lane and drinking the milk and her face is on the Borg Warner Trophy. I can't wait for that day to come. But at the same time, let's celebrate what we have right now with Caitlyn Brown here, and really highlight her story and appreciate the beauty of motor racing, because this is a competitive sport as you're going to find, but it is a place where the car does not know gender, and men and women can truly compete on equal terms. The same track, the same race, and we don't just see that behind the driver's seat here, as this is further proof of that. So well done to Caitlyn Brown, and we'll see. I know Joseph Newgarden's gearing up to maybe go 3 in a row next year. Maybe she can do the same, and the entire pit crew can enjoy that moment with him.
Yep, definitely. And Ben, I really like that phrase, the car doesn't know any gender. I think it's very good to motivate more women to get into motorsports. But anyways, that's all for this section. Emily, I'll hand it over to you now to talk more about ARCA at Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Isha. So the ARCA Menard Series was at Charlotte Motor Speedway to kick off the race weekend with the General Tire 150. Amber Balkin started in the top 10 and ran in the top 15 for the first half. Toni Breidinger started outside the top 10, was 16th, and worked her way to the top 10 by the second half of the race. Amber ultimately finished 15th, 1 lap down, and Toni 12th on the lead lap. Now, Joe, starting with you, how challenging was this race for both of them and everyone?
This race, the cars, they were just on the edge from the moment they got started and got racing. I really thought we were going to see a lot more cautions, a lot more incidents. I was surprised we didn't get the high number as I anticipated, because they were just on the edge. This is reminded me of a lot of the older races where you saw comers and goers. Amber Balkin started up, got into the top 10, and I thought, hey, okay, she could stay up there, log the laps. That'll be a great day. Sorry to fall back. It's just the way it goes, one of those deals. And then for Toni, I thought she was starting to do the opposite, but then towards the end, things just didn't exactly go 100% the way she wanted to. But still, overall, 41 points to essentially getting towards the points lead at the end of the race. That's a huge moment for her. And I think overall, this was just a big challenge. And for Charlotte Motor Speedway, where we know the unique track conditions, where this pavement just seems to never age, with this car as loose as they were on the edge of control, I really thought we were going to have a lot more cautions. So kudos to everyone for completing a bunch of the laps.
Yeah, it was a challenging race, really, not just for Breidinger and Balkin, but for the entire Venturini team. They had 5 cars in the race. Not a single one of them, I don't believe, was in the top 5 here. I'm just looking at the results again. Tanner Gray, the winner, Carson Kloppel, Andres Perez, Will Kimmel, and LeVar Scott. None of them Venturini drivers. You had Gus Dean and Dean Thompson right behind there in 6th and 7th. But, after that, it was a struggle for Venturini, not where we expect them to be running. So I don't know if they just missed the setup and Toni and Amber's cars, were particularly ill handling or what happened there. But tough race for them as an entire organization. And hopefully they can bounce back here as we get into the summer months here for several ARCA races coming up.
Yeah, certainly a very challenging race, but it left us at the edge of our seats. So with that being said, in the point standings, Amber is 3rd with 3 top 10 finishes in the 6 races. Only 6 points behind is Andre Perez and Greg Van Alst. Tony is also in the top 10, 8th place, and 41 points behind the points leader. Now, Ben, Joe, 14 races left in the season. Can Amber overtake Perez and Van Alst?
I just pulled the racing reference standings up, and I know ARCA is sometimes slow to update the standings here. I have Balkan 33 behind Andres Perez, and Greg Van Alst 16 points behind Perez. So I think the gap's a little bit larger than that. But it is great to see her up in third still. I know that obviously she's had to persevere a lot through her injury the last couple of races, and been fortunate with the timing of the schedule that she's been going a 1.5 mile tracks where there's not nearly as much off throttle time here. So if the gap were a little bit closer, if she had been running a little bit higher up in the race results, she's still looking for her first top 5. So I think you look at Andres Perez, sat on the pole and had a shot at winning his first race. I think he's a little bit closer to knocking on the door of getting into victory lane here. I think a good goal for Amber right now would be to just hang on to third, because she's got LeVar Scott right behind her in fourth, and teammate Chris Wright as well in fifth, and obviously Breininger's down there in eighth as well, trying to gain some ground. So I think that's more the battle right now. I think Perez, we knew coming into the season here, was always going to be the championship favorite. Huge credit to Greg Van Alst, because we know that based on and what happened to him last season is proof of that. He said when he won Daytona, guys like me aren't supposed to do this. He's much more independent and much more of a shoestring budget than the drivers for Rev Racing and Venturini have. So credit to him, what he's doing there. But I think Perez is pretty clearly her championship favorite. I think a good goal for Amber Balkan right now is just to kind of hang on to where she is in points, maybe get up to Van Alst. But I think Perez is pretty far ahead and solidly the favorite at this point.
One of the big things going from essentially, a small points gap to now 33 points now that the stands have been updated. There's potential if Amber could continue being consistent, like you said, just focus on running her own race on each and every track. Case Greg Van Alst has bad luck, a rough race, doesn't finish. That's opportunities to score points, get up there. I think overall, being third in the points, if she could maintain third place, that's a huge accomplishment considering to where she was last year. Overall, one of the big things is when it comes to the racing, finishing the races, scoring those maximum points, it's the best route to keep up there. Third place would be a huge accomplishment for her and the team. And overall, not focus on getting caught up. We could get second. Maybe we could get the lead. Just run your own race. If you're in third place, that's a huge accomplishment. That'll be a huge celebration towards the end of the season. And really, I think a lot of folks, when they're thinking Tony Breininger, top 10 still, that's really good. I thought a lot of people thought it would be roles reversed. So for Amber, I think this has to be really great. Just keep doing what you're doing. If you could get more top 10 finishes, that'll just only help you out and hopefully capitalize in case of bad luck for Greg Van Alst or others.
I agree, Joe. I find that people usually find the best success if they focus on their own performance. So she just needs to focus on running her own race, as you said. Now, before we switch to the Xfinity Series at Charlotte, an interesting post yesterday, Ben. Logan Miss Uraka posted a photo of her with the General Tire logo and said she'll be in the number 9 Chevrolet at her quote-unquote dream race. Any speculation on what is her dream race, Ben?
It's a very good question. I know that she's obviously from Florida. She does a lot with the NASCAR racing experience at Daytona. So you would think maybe Daytona would be her dream race, but she ran that race last year in the 63 car for ARCA, and also ran Talladega and Pocono. So, and of course, we're in the middle of the season now, where ARCA only goes to Daytona once a year for the season opener. So I have no idea. I'm just as excited as everybody else to see what she has planned. I know that she was very bummed that she lost the Celsius sponsorship to Tony Breininger, ironically enough, during the offseason. She's been working on the business side of her career, trying to put something together to make a few more starts and make a return to the series. And it looks like she's got an announcement planned here very shortly. So we'll keep our eye on what exactly that is. But I have no clue. I have no insider info. I'm just as excited as everybody to see what kind of deal she has put together here.
Well, we're definitely going to keep our eyes out and see if we can find out what that dream race is soon. So, Isha, let's continue our Charlotte weekend and news that could complicate plans for Hailie Deegan.
That's right, Emily. Thank you. So the BetMGM 300 had 38 cars and 2 female drivers. Natalie Decker returned in the 92 Mario Gosselin Chevrolet. She came home 29th after starting in 37th and survived qualifying as 2 cars did not make the race. She finished 4 laps down from the leader. Hailie Deegan qualified 32nd and finished 20th, 1 lap down. Now, neither of them led laps at Charlotte, and for Hailie Deegan, she moved up to 26th in the point standings. So, Joe and Ben, how concerning is it for both of them to struggle at Charlotte?
I think it was very concerning to see that kind of struggle at Charlotte. We've all talked about how this is sort of the home track for the NASCAR industry, whereas the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, the Truck Series, this is a track where you know everybody's nearby. A lot of teams, especially early on, have done a lot of testing, lots of notes at this track. So for Hailie Deegan to struggle out there, I was just really surprised that, okay, I know this is her rookie year. I get it. But is the team were they just that off? What was going on? Because at the end of the day, I could understand if this was a backmarker team, a rookie that, may have done a little too less few years in the ARCA or the Truck Series and just was not exactly prepared. I really anticipated at least something better than what we saw on Saturday for Hailie Deegan. It was just overall a tough deal for her. And then Natalie Decker, I think the big problem is just the lack of seat time. We've talked about the lack of seat time. Brand new ride, everything all put together. You're just going to struggle. And I mean, it was just a tough deal for her. But at the end of the day, if she could just log more laps, that's going to help her out. For Natalie Deegan, for me, that was a big surprise just seeing her not exactly having that good of a day.
Yeah, not too surprised by Decker, unfortunately, and that's not a knock on her performance or anything. It's just to your point, Joe, when you only run a few races a year, which is where she's at with her sponsorship and her career nowadays, running part-time, bouncing around from team to team, car number to car number, even within the same team sometimes, it's very hard to establish that chemistry with your crew, and that continuity really doesn't exist in the same way. So, it's very difficult to come in and, just run as well as you would like. And that's what makes the part-timers that run as well as they do so impressive. But yeah, I mean, not too surprised to see where she ended up in the results. And, unfortunately, and I've not been looking forward to this part of a show all day, to be honest with you, because it's not pleasant to talk about. I wish we could be talking about Hailie Deegan in a little more positive light right now, but we have to be honest. We have to be objective. I don't think this was much of a surprise either. When you look at where that car has been running this year, when you look at how she ran last year in the Truck Series, you can make the equipment excuse all you want. I'm sure AM Racing is not Stewart Haas, and we'll get into what's going on with Stewart Haas right now in just a moment as well. But when you look at what she did with her opportunity with David Gilliland Racing in trucks and at Motorsport last year, I mean, her teammate Ben Rhodes won the championship. There's absolutely no way you can make the equipment excuse for her truck ride last year, and that was her third year in the series. So that's why I think some people were a little surprised to see her move up. Others thought that she just needed a culture change, and Xfinity was the next logical step. And that I understand that part of it as well. But this was only her fourth top 20 in 12 starts to start the year. She's outside the top 20 twice as much as she's in it, and it's quite frankly not good enough.
Yep. Now, Hailie Deegan is going to Portland next weekend. Ben and Joe, you both will be there. However, she won't have veteran crew chief Joe Williams as the team AM Racing has parted ways. Now, Matt Lucas, the team competition director, will be on top of the pit box for the time being. So, Ben, starting with you, 12 races in, her best finish is 12th. Do you believe this move was needed?
I mean, again, I suppose it doesn't hurt, but I don't know if this is a situation where you can look at it and say, well, if you just change who's on top of the pit box, that's going to be the magic switch that turns everything around. She's been with David Gilliland's truck team. Like I just said, she's been with Motorsport, and Motorsport put 3 of their trucks in the playoffs last year, and she only had 2 top 10s the entire season. And here she is now with AM Racing and Xfinity, and best finish at 12th, like you mentioned, Isha at Talladega. Her best finish on a non super speedway track is 15th at Las Vegas, which was the only track she came into this year having run an Xfinity race at before. It's very hard for me to see. And And I hope she goes out and proves me wrong. I mean, I want to be clear. I wish nothing but the best for her. And, again, I wish we didn't have to be talking about her in this negative of a light right now. But, we just have to look at the results and look at the performance and compare it to the expectations and, the conversation surrounding her when she won those West Series races, and then to a lesser extent in ARCA with some strong performances here and there. It just, I've been saying on this show, I feel like for a couple of years now, at some point in the National Series, Trucks or Xfinity or Cup or whatever, you have to show that the potential remains there to take that next step forward and blossom into a star of this sport. And unfortunately, the results just haven't been there. I, again, suppose making a crew chief change, couldn't hurt. You just kind of throw different setups or ideas at the situation. Maybe you see a slight uptick in performance, but it's not a situation where I feel like that alone is going to make enough of a difference at this point. So we'll see. We'll talk about it in just a moment. But I think her future is going to kind of be at a crossroads after the season, unless we finally see that step taken forward and uptick in performance finally come to fruition.
And that's the key to this is we know Ford is really supportive of Hailie Deegan, especially after she had success in the NASCAR Canada West Series, then came up to Trucks. And originally, my thought was, okay, she's coming into the Xfinity Series. We know on Grid Encore, you and Brown have talked a lot about the racing, how sometimes the lack of respect. Maybe that change in the scene with the Xfinity Series could do the difference. It hasn't really seemed to do so. Now, I know last year, AM Racing, they had essentially, the number 25 Brett Moffitt. They had some top 10s there, but Hailie Deegan is just, we know it's a rookie season. It's just not showing there. And I feel this is just an attempt to, let's see if maybe this works. Will it work? It's really hard to say. And especially we're coming to Portland, a very unique road course with little to no elevation changes, some sweeping corners. Handling is going to be something else. I think it's not going to be a pleasantly good weekend result-wise. I love to be wrong and see all of a sudden, hey, Hailie Deegan's top 20, maybe top 10s, in case it gets chaotic and you survive overtime. But I think this is just a move where it's okay, we're just trying this to just see if we could get something. Maybe there's something we don't know. Maybe just the chemistry between her and the crew chief was just not there. But like you said, from the Truck Series, we weren't seeing that whole lot of progress. We're not seeing that. I think it now is we need to start doing something, try to turn it around, because Portland's the 13th race. We got 33 left of the year, so we're getting down to the final 20.
Yeah, Joe, just to bounce off of that real quick, I keep an eye on her at Sonoma because she sat on pole there in the West Series several years back, and that was a field that included a couple of Cup drivers, and that was 5 years ago. So we know she's progressed as a driver and has a lot more experience now than she did then. Portland, I think, a little bit more of a wild card just because of the lack of experience there as well. But again, Joe, to your point about the equipment, I'd give that a little bit more benefit of the doubt if it weren't for the fact that we have, even though it's a single car this year, we have Brett Moffitt's results from last year to go off of. And I know Brett's a truck champion and a very good driver in his own right, but it shows what that car is capable of. And then again, the Truck Series last year, you can talk about, people said David Gilliland's kind of a B team. Again, Motorsport won the championship with Ben Rhodes. Ty Majeski made the playoffs. Matt Crafton made the playoffs. Hailie Deegan was down in 19th in points. I mean, it's very hard to overlook that and, make the equipment argument there when you have teammates in the playoffs and one that even went on to win the title. So again, I hope that it turns around. I hope that this move, at least, if it's not a total fix-all sort of solution here for all of their problems, it at least kind of ignites a spark that maybe gets them headed in the right direction. But again, I feel like it's going to take a lot more than just a crew chief change to really turn the team around and start turning that car into an organization and a team and a driver that can compete for top 10s and top 5s and be a playoff contender in the Xfinity Series.
Yep. All right. Now I want to bring Emily in for this discussion about Deegan and any potential Cup Series start in her future. So Tuesday was announced that Stewart Haas Racing was shutting down. Many originally thought that she would be on track to join Stewart Haas. Now Ford have very few teams, and in the Cup Series there are few opportunities. Penske has 3 drivers. None of them seem to be leaving soon. RFK is a 2-car operation. Front Row is a 2-car team, rumored to be expanding to 3. Plus they have an open seat with McDowell leaving. Now, Rick Ware Racing is a 2-car team with Justin Haley and the 15 being shared with 3 drivers, and the Wood brothers are a single-car team. So, Emily, Joe, and Ben, how has the news complicated the road to the Cup Series for Hailie Deegan?
Sure. And I want to go back to some of Joe and Ben's points of our perception of this this crew chief change is very much like, well, it can't hurt. But internally, you just that team is having really, really huge desperation to do anything they possibly can to bring about change. Because understandably, I don't think anyone at AM Racing thought that Hailie would be down in 26th in the points. Just like none of us, anyone in the NASCAR community, racing fans across the world, would think that the powerhouse that Stewart Haas Racing is would be shutting down its racing operations at the end of this season. So truly a huge shock came out yesterday to not only racing fans, as I mentioned, but certainly Hailie Deegan, because there was a clear path for her given the alliance between AM Racing and Stewart Haas. And now, amidst all of the chaos that has to be going down with, not only the cars in the Xfinity Series, and not to mention that is the current champion in the Xfinity Series with Stewart Haas Racing. But now there are going to be 4 displaced Cup Series cars that are going to be looking for other homes. So it's really unfortunate that the somewhat clear path is washed away for Hailie, and she is not only going to be struggling just as a potential rookie trying to enter the series, but she's going to be competing against all of those seasoned drivers now looking for new homes. So I do think it is a bit early to confidently predict where she could be ending up. But I do think growing her popularity and, as Ben mentioned, her undeniable talent, she should continue to be part of the Cup Series conversation. But with that, just a huge, huge blow to her efforts. And I do want to just say a really huge, devastating news to all of the men and women that work at Stewart Haas Racing off of the racetrack. I really feel for them. And I'm sure that they too are feeling equally as desperate when they are trying to evaluate what their career is going to look like after the end of this year. So a huge, unfortunate situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, this news from Stewart Haas Racing has a huge ripple effect, not just from the employees, but the drivers. Even when it comes to the landscape of the NASCAR Cup Series, I know right before we went on the air, Front Row made an announcement that they're expanding. It's just been one of those deals. It's been hard to follow. And for Hailie Deegan, while we know Ford has been very supportive of her career, getting her up, especially with what we're seeing right now, we are going to be seeing some changes with the crew chief. We'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, you have other drivers with Ford back in, Riley Herbst, Cole Custer, the defending champion. They're going to be wanting to look up, get an opportunity into the Cup Series with Ford. This just really makes it really complicated. And I think for Hailie Deegan, it's going to be easier for somebody to say, let's look at Riley Herbst, what he's done to number 98. Cole Custer, does he deserve a second chance? And where do they go? Potentially the Wood brothers. We know that's been rumored with their silly season, their driver situation. Front Row with their 3rd car. This has just made it where I think we've talked about in the past, Toyota, their driver development seems to always have a roadblock issue when it gets to the Cup Series. Now Ford has that mess right now. I think with Ford, it's going to have a hard time trying to figure out, okay, we got drivers that we're developing. Hailie Deegan, where does she fit in the picture? That just makes it really hard. And just one of those tough deals where this just has a huge ripple effect across the NASCAR industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, and you hate it for everybody that works at Stewart-Haas. Obviously that was where Danica Patrick made the vast majority of her Cup Series starts in her career. So you hate to see that team go. But again, I don't have too much to add to this particular question, because if Deegan were running a little bit better than she is, then I think we can have that conversation. Like, this is probably the next logical landing place for a Ford performance development driver in Xfinity. But, like we just talked about earlier in this segment, I mean, she's, I think Emily said it, 26th in points right now. There's one driver in the whole Xfinity Series that has run every race this year that's lower than her in points. That's Blaine Perkins in 28th. Eric Almirola and Ryan Truex, granted, they both won races, and, stage points factor into that now more than ever, but they both only run 5 of the 12 races so far. They're 18th and 25th in points right now, respectively. So I just feel like, again, the conversations would be different if she were running better. And obviously, it's another blow on top of the difficult season that she's having so far. But again, when you look at it objectively, I don't think too many Cup teams, are going to have their eyes on the 26th place driver in the Xfinity standings. So that's goal number one for her, obviously, is to improve her results. And if we see that, when we see that, we'll see. Front row expanding, like you mentioned, Joe, that could be a landing place. We've seen Rick Ware's team take some steps forward. They've now got an alliance with RFK. They seem to be running better than ever. So I do think, these charters are going to land somewhere and opportunities will open up. But are they going to look at Hailie Deegan over a Cole Custer or a Riley Herbst, or, maybe even a Ryan Sieg right now? I don't know, but the answer to that is yes.
All right, now looking ahead to next week, our schedule will be Xfinity Series in Portland, along with the ARCA Menard Series West. Isabella Robusto will be in the field in ARCA West, Hailie Deegan in the Xfinity Series. Ben and Joe will be at the track, and we will recap both of their weekends next week. Now with that, Joe, I'll hand it over to you for the closing.
Yeah, we're all out of time for today's program, but be sure, invest into Grid Network through Patreon. You get some Grid Network stickers mailed out to you. Call the show. Mark, Robin, David, Matthew have been getting their stickers already. You could also do a one-time investment, $10 or more. That'll get you stickers. Any amount is welcome, but $10 more, the stickers are sent out to you. And the simplest way to support us, subscribe, hit the bell icon, share it with your family friends that love motorsports, and follow us on gridranking.com. Matthew Bro posting weekly with NASCAR coverage. And we're very excited because we'll have our Xfinity Series coverage on YouTube right here starting tomorrow, where we're going to be previewing the ARCA race, the Xfinity race, and then, of course, the busy weekend. We'll recap it all, post it on the website and right here on YouTube. For Isha, Emily, and Ben, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time, and enjoy the races.